Good morning and welcome to the online devotion from Mount Gilead Church. My name is Mike Bridgewater and I'm the operations director here at the church building. And as you know, if you've been following along from home, you know that here on Friday mornings we've been working our way through the parables of Jesus. Today we're going to look at a scene that takes place at the beginning of chapter 16 in the book of Matthew. This scene takes place about 2 years into Jesus' public ministry. And if you look at this timeline, we're also about 1 year away from the triumphal entry into Jerusalem. Some Pharisees from Jerusalem have traveled to the Sea of Galilee to question Jesus. And when we get to chapter 16, we also see that some of the Sadducees, who normally despise the Pharisees, have partnered up with them against their common enemy. This interaction with the Sadducees and Pharisees is preceded by some significant emotional, famous, and miraculous events, such as the murder of Jesus' lifelong friend, John the Baptist, Jesus walking on the water, the feeding of the 5,000, and then at the end of chapter 15, a second miraculous feeding of another vast crowd on a hilltop by the Sea of Galilee. If you've never been to Israel and the Sea of Galilee, this is what it looks like. It's a beautiful place. Let's read the description of what happened on a hilltop overlooking the Sea of Galilee from Matthew 15:30 and 31. It says, "A vast crowd brought to him people who were lame, blind, crippled, those who couldn't speak, and many others. They laid them before Jesus, and he healed them all. The crowd was amazed. Those who hadn't been able to speak were talking. The crippled were made well. The lame were walking, and the blind could see again. And they praised the God of Israel." As for myself, I just find it hard to imagine how physically and emotionally draining an event like that would be. This event lasted for days. After all these healings, you would think Jesus would want some rest and relaxation. But no, he says he felt sorry for the people because they'd been with him for 3 days and had had nothing to eat. So he takes 7 loaves and a few fish and feeds the 4,000 men, plus all the women and all the children. He then sends the crowd away with a full belly and takes a boat ride over to the region of Magadan. It's here where we see the strange bedfellows of the Pharisees and Sadducees combining forces to test Jesus. Let's look at this at the beginning of Matthew chapter 16. It says, "One day the Pharisees and the Sadducees came to test Jesus, demanding that he show them a miraculous sign from heaven to prove his authority." Obviously, all the previous healings and miraculous feedings were not sufficient. They wanted to see a sign in the heavens or in the sky. So as we've seen previously, Jesus doesn't give them a straightforward answer. He replied, he said, "You know the saying, red sky at night means fair weather tomorrow. Red sky in the morning means foul weather all day. You know how to interpret the signs in the sky, but you don't know how to interpret the signs of the times." He is telling them on one hand, they have the wherewithal to discern the signs in creation in the sky. However, you're missing the signs of the times that are literally standing right in front of you. The event that you've been waiting on for centuries, you're actually missing. Then he calls them out for what they are. He says, "Only an evil and adulterous generation would demand a miraculous sign. But the only sign I will give is the sign of the prophet Jonah." Then Jesus left them and went away. A couple chapters earlier in Matthew chapter 12, Jesus explained the sign of Jonah. He said, "For as Jonah was in the belly of the great fish for 3 days and 3 nights, so will the Son of Man be in the heart of the earth for 3 days and 3 nights." So what are the points for us today? Well, first, demanding a sign in order to believe is its own sign. It's a sign of no faith. Making these types of demands is only going to lead you down the road of disappointment. We know from Hebrews 11:6 it says that it is impossible to please God without faith. Secondly, demanding a sign is an indicator of idolatry. The phrase adulterous generation is not referring to adultery as in infidelity within their marriage relationships, but spiritual adultery. James puts it this way in James 4. He says, "You adulterers, don't you realize that friendship with the world makes you an enemy of God? I say it again, if you want to be a friend of the world, you make yourself an enemy of God." Do you not think the Scriptures have no meaning? They say that God is passionate, that the Spirit He has placed within us should be faithful to Him. And lastly, point to the cross, the sign of Jonah. Peter preached it boldly this way on the day of Pentecost in Acts chapter 2. He said, "People of Israel, listen. God publicly endorsed Jesus the Nazarene by doing powerful miracles and wonders and signs through Him, as you well know. But God knew what would happen, and His prearranged plan was carried out when Jesus was betrayed. With the help of the lawless Gentiles, you nailed Him to the cross and killed Him. But God released Him from the horrors of death and raised Him back to life, for death could not keep Him in its grip." The irony about signs and talking about signs is this. Pilate actually got that part right. In John chapter 19 it says, "And Pilate posted a sign on the cross that read, 'Jesus of Nazareth, the King of the Jews.'" Hail King Jesus. Thanks so much for watching today, and thanks for the comments and likes. I really do appreciate it. That's all I have for you. If you were here last weekend, you know that we had a large crowd for Easter Sunday. Not as big as those crowds in Matthew 14 and 15, however, we did have over 2,000 in the building. Jeff's starting a new series this week. I hope you're able to make it at either 9 o'clock or 10:30. Have a great rest of your Friday. Bye-bye.